only one ticket and 4 players. Let's take a look at the bracket of how things are going to transpire today. We start things off with Frozen versus Purple. This is a matchup that is between 2 players who have been to a World Championship. In fact, Purple has a interesting opportunity to become the first ever player to go to 3 World Championships in the course of 5 years. It'd be very impressive, to say the least. And then Eddie versus PNC. We talked about New Blood, how Fino versus Psycho in the Europe region would have been 2 players who have never been to a World Championship. So either way, we get a veteran versus someone who's rising up.
All right, we also have a very different story in terms of the deck lists that are brought here. For Europe region, it was exclusively Tempo Rogues and Cyclone Mages. And here we have Frozen on Pogo Rogue, we have Purple on Bomb Warrior, we have Eddie on Holy Wrath Paladin, and we have PNC on the Cyclone Mage. And so since that first match is Frozen versus Purple, that's what we're going to be looking at. And Dan, Pogo Hopper Rogue is what he's brought. He's been talking about it for a long time. He wrote a big guide, and then he actually just brought it. He said, top 4, I'm going to risk it all.
He streamed in Top 10 Legend with it for weeks and was even crowning it as the Tier 1 meta-breaking deck. And that was before Vanish was rotated to the Hall of Fame. Vanish has since disappeared, and now he's replaced that with just other cards. And Vanish was a pretty core part of the deck, I feel like, because of the fact that Pogo Hopper got decreased in mana cost to 1 from the Rise of the Mechs event. So, you know, Pogo Hopper, if you guys haven't played Hearthstone about a year since the Boomsday Project release, well, Pogo Hopper got decreased to half the mana cost. It used to cost 2, which people were like, it's fun, but it's a little bit too expensive. And now it's 1 mana.
Yeah, so it not only additionally benefits from the fact that it's 1 mana, thus easier to play, but Witchwood Piper alongside Pogo Hopper just became, if you have Pogo Hopper, draw a Pogo Hopper, which is a fantastic interaction that completely changes the dynamic of the deck.
All right, well, take a look at Purple's deck list. He has the Bomb Warrior. Bomb Warrior, of course, being a staple deck in the Americas region. Many players love it. But if you ask Purple, he's not loving his chances in this series, given that Pogo Hopper Rogue is a slow deck buster. It tends to destroy anything that plays a little slow. And so Purple has only one option, really, which is to be aggressive. And Bomb Warrior, if you ask some players, or casters to my right, they think it's actually a very good aggressive deck.
And it is. Now, albeit I think it's an inconsistently aggressive deck to that effect. It has a lot of tools in here that are dedicated solely for defense. You take a look at like Warpath and Brawl. You can turn them into offensive potential, but it takes a while and it takes the right setup. And I believe it was in Purple's interview yesterday, after he made it through, last player to make it through to the top 4 here in America's region, he had said something like, well, last time I practiced versus this deck, I faced against a 5-5 and a 7-7 on turn 3. So I'm looking forward to my top 4 finish.
Yeah, you know, top 4 in this field is extremely impressive given the caliber of players that you have to beat, but it's also that much more painful when you know how close you are to the World Championship. And I think Purple is just tempering expectations. We've seen upsets happen before. We've seen very unfavorables go one way or the other. But in Specialist, it gets worse because Purple will have deck lists prepared for, you know, all kinds of stuff, but I don't know if he's prepared for Pogo Rogue versus the Pogo Rogue. He feels, because it's an unexpected deck, has an opportunity to go for multi-pronged attacks with the secondary and tertiary deck.
Yeah, I would say that having a deck prepared for Pogo Hopper Rogue would be a bit unusual to begin with, but additionally to that, he's meant to build. The reason you bring Warriors to be strong against Rogue in game number 1. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest ways you do that is using cards like Dynomatic to take care of board positions. Pogo Hopper's a mech, so Dynomatic doesn't touch it. The whole goal of the Pogo Hopper is to get larger as the game progresses, so
right.
Your Militia Commanders and your Shield Slams get weaker against it. The whole goal of the Pogo Hopper is to put pressure on decks that take time to build up an aggressive strategy, and that's exactly what Purple's deck tries to do. Like, at every single angle you look at this spells out a match for me where Purple is going to look to take massive risks to try to snag any edge you can.
I think it's definitely in order for Purple to get this win against Frozen. So let's go ahead and hop into game number 1 here. Purple is going to be on the coin, Purple on the play. You know, one card that I feel like I've underrated a lot in this deck is Barista Lynchen, and just how important she is to continue to keep tempo and build your hand size. The one limiting factor that I found whenever I played Pogo Rogue was my hand count. I always feel like I can dump my hand and do a lot of cool plays, especially since Pogo Rogue is really, or sorry, Pogo Hopper is really cheap. But the problem was that, you know, dependency on Myers and Stable Element, dependency on being able to use Vanish to get more value off my battle cries, that kind of stuff really felt like it hamstrung a lot of my plays.
I just appreciate her ability to rattle off the order real quick.
That's right. She's experienced barista.
Yeah. Take talent.
If, of course, her customers are using their real names.
Yeah. She's not spelling them wrong.
Yeah.
You know, one time at a Starbucks, I order my thing, and they go, Jason. And I go, no, Nathan. And he goes, David, got it. And I go, no, Nathan. And he goes, Davin, got it. And I go, nobody's name is Davin. Who's named Davin? I don't even think that's a real name.
You know what? I'm going to tell that story to TJ, and he's going to name his second child David just to troll you. That's the kind of guy TJ is.
Well, I'll go back and I'll apologize.
TJ, of course, will be casting the last series with me today to wrap up the finals. But TJ and Sutter will be coming up next for semifinal number 2 between PNC and Eddie, who, of course, is on the Paladin. Checking back into this game, the first couple turns here, Purple favoring that early game tempo with the snip snap, which has been very crucial. Although, you know, I'll admit that I feel like that early game tempo isn't really nearly as important as to make sure that Frozen doesn't snowball that early lead. You've mentioned that Purple was, you know, jokingly talk about how he sees turn 3, 5-5s, and 7-7s from Pogo. But that kind of depends on Frozen having that early aggressive start. For the most part, he's going to be a slow deck. He doesn't really tend to come out the gates gun blazing like that.
Yeah, you have the potential for very aggressive draws, but they're not always there. And when they're not there, you're going to have to operate on a much more fair mechanism. Now, I think fair deck versus fair deck is still pretty favorable for Frozen, all things considered. He's just building to a bigger endgame plan in general than Purple is. But I think Purple's got a decent start here. He's disrupted a little bit of the card draw, snip snap, but demanded resources and slowed down Frozen a little bit. Really, that evil miscreant draw is the one I'm looking for that that really changes the game on this one. Is Frozen now no longer has to just hang on to that single lackey he had. He's free to develop some more and look towards that high spare and Togwaggle later.
Yeah, every single Discover from Ethereal Lackey is very scary because they might pick up Togwaggle Scheme, they might pick up Myers Unstable Element, just things that kind of lock in the game plan from Rogue and make sure it smooths out its awkward curves. And right now, Frozen just following along the curve. You mentioned the High Spear and Togwaggle. Looks very nice as a turn 6 option.
Yeah, that's about the best turn 6 option you got.
Yeah, and you get Wondrous Wand, which discounts all of your cards to 0. And now...
Just rip the goblet and know you're getting Pogos.
You know, I kind of wonder about that. If you were in this position where Togwaggle was like the 29th card of your deck and you know 30th is Pogo Hopper, I mean, I do think that's a situation where you consider ripping it.
I definitely think so. I've taken Goblet exactly one time, or I've taken a lot of times, actually. The only time I've ever gotten a payoff was knowing literally exactly what my 30th card was.
Right. Or if you shuffled a bunch and you just know that this, like, all of it is...
Yeah, those ones have failed for me so far.
And that's when I ripped the last bomb. Well, just got shuffled in my deck.
Best turn 6 play for Frozen, met by perhaps the best turn 6 play from Purple here with Dr. Boom, Mad Genius, and the fight begins.
Yes, it'll be a fight for the board. And Purple, with having Dr. Boom Mad Genius, gives him a fighting chance.
Well, so you get some free card draw off of it, so you get to dig deep in the deck. Unfortunately, those don't arrive with discounts. And so I'm thinking for Frozen, this turn is all about the Wondrous Wand, Edwin Van Cleef.
It looks like it. Omega Devastator is a few turns away. You can shred off 5 armor by attacking with the King Togwaggle. A bunch of new classic cards, really. Stolen Steel and Purple. Well, not classic cards. Stolen Steel looks like it'd be a classic card, but generally not that useful. Purple finding Shield Slam would be important here, but doesn't seem like he can deal with the Van Cleef right now.
Yeah, 10-10 Edwin is certainly going to be a massive impact, and so Purple knows he has to go drawing, which means he's skipping 7 armor. There's no point attacking the Lackey, he says. I want that 1-1 to stay on board in case I draw Brawl, which he also does not find. And so Frozen here, when you don't see your 10-10 Edwin dealt with, it is time to capitalize.
Well, he also picks up Shadow Step, so you can utilize it on the Heist Baron.
Can't imagine not doing that.
Right, and that's sort of a...
Spear to the Shark with it if you wanted to. You can Lab Recruiter it. There's just so many ways to punish slow game plans.
Right, but the ultimate punish was that Frozen still kept the Lackey on board. He would have had an opportunity to generate anyways with the Evil Cable Rat, but he doesn't have to play it. Looking for Frozen to maybe even set up a 2-turn lethal. There's a very real chance that Frozen wins this game without playing a single Pogo Hopper.
Yeah, I mean, it does have alternate game plans. I mean, High Spare and Togwaggle is an extremely powerful card. You know, Edwin Van Cleef is an extremely powerful card. Frozen going to choose to hedge his bets versus Brawl in this circumstance. And so for Purple, you are looking at slim to none chance. How do you do anything to climb out of this scenario?
Yeah, this looks very similar to just a Burgle Rogue package here from Frozen. He's holding all of his Pogo-related cards in his hand. Lab Recruiter, Witchwood Piper.
Yeah, for Purple, this is all about figuring out how to close the gap from turn 8 to turn 10. That's very difficult to do when the Edwin just smacked you in the face for 10 and you know that they have another treasure from High Spare.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if Purple knew that he was going up against more of a Tempo Rogue style, the Warrior actually feels pretty good usually in the matchup. Emphasis on usually. Not in this specific instance, though. Well, you can't deal with a 10-10. And it's only getting worse because Frozen has another treasure in the hand for the Wanda's Wand.
Just not even using Kaboom.
Oh, that's interesting. Why is he not using Kaboom in that position?
I think he wants to demonstrate the position that he's in right now. This is not relevant. Let me show you why. There's an Edwin Van Cleef, and if I fail to deal with that, I will fail to win.
Yeah, you know, that is interesting to me.
It's a very Purple kind of play. You know, Purple very much, I think, enjoys a lot of the competitive Hearthstone aspect as like a minor performance, where he wants to demonstrate his ability to work on the fly with lots of different variables and find the edge.
Yeah, that being said, he has 2 Clockwork Goblins and a Zap next turn. Or even, I guess Clockwork Goblins, Ziliax. Oh, he doesn't have enough to Zap as well.
That is a pretty... I want to say that's the worst Wondrous Wand possible.
2 0-mana spells?
That was 3 0-mana
3 mana, 0-mana spells? Yeah, I'd say so. Still, 3 mana, draw 3 cards isn't bad in itself. It's just that Wanda's Wand we know could be a lot more. Okay, well, Clockwork Diamondmatic will clear off everything.
Well, yeah, that's true. I wonder how much of a difference that Kaboom makes now, though.
Yeah.
So it did make a difference in this spot. He still gets to clear.
Okay, then.
I mean, it was making a difference if he didn't.
Principle of the thing to me.
Yeah. Also, if Purple finds himself 1 damage off lethal this game.
So pretty desperately saving the Dynomatic. It's kind of interesting to save the Dynomatic. You know, one of the things that I think is on the forefront of his mind is that if I'm going to handle this Edwin Van Cleef, I want to handle it now. So the Omega Devastator's basically doing that.
Well,
but
yeah.
Now, Spirit of the Shark is something I need to take care of.
Exactly. Spirit of the Shark is a card that he wants to be able to effectively pick apart.
Kaboom definitely looks a lot better when you have a Dynomatic in hand.
Yeah, just a nice little spray and pray action. Frozen has a huge hand. Still doesn't have to commit to the Pogo Hoppers. If he plays Witchwood Piper, he'll draw the Pogo Hoppers, play the Pogo Hoppers, and get Battlecry buffs.
Yeah. To me, the story here is look at the amount of work Frozen has done without utilizing the central core of his deck. This was Edwin Van Cleef, High Spare, and Togwaggle, and some lackeys. It's wreaked havoc so far.
It sounds like a recipe for success.
Come dance to my song.
Witchwood Piper, pulling out the
Come
double
dance to my
Pogos.
song. Choose soon.
The preps are there in case you need them.
Turns out he doesn't really need it.
Burn them for hand size.
Important to note, Frozen's deck does not play a Leroy Jenkins. This is a deliberate choice because Frozen feels like his deck operates best off of winning the board and not through burst in the hand. However, he does add it to his tertiary deck with a Waggle Pick and a Leroy Jenkins. So Purple does have the Dynomatic play, but if he does, he forgoes the ability to answer the Spear of the Shark. He started off his play through a Mega Assembly as well, just to see what kind of mechs that he can get through the Discover option. And, you know, Warrior has some pretty good mechs that can help him in this position because I think he's also worried about his life total. So I wouldn't even be that mad if Purple got some cheap armor gain mechs off of the Mega Assembly.
I'm curious what Purple's thinking about right now.
Another alternative for Purple here is to use Ziliax to rebound some of his life.